This is episode 9 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview-style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. I'd like to welcome Jacqueline Ross as our guest today. Jacqueline is the CEO and founder of Revolar, and Jacqueline has always held a passion for social issues that has led her to work as a guardian ad litem in Florida, as an intern with UNICEF, and most recently as a teacher for Teach for America in Aurora, Colorado. Previously, she worked as a Spanish as a second language teacher at AXL Academy and is currently on the board of directors for the nonprofit Rise Beyond Dreams located in Denver, Colorado. She holds a bachelor's in both international studies and Spanish from the University of Florida, where she graduated summa cum laude. Revolar is the latest innovation in personal safety. If you're ever in danger or feel uncomfortable, simply press the button on your Revolar device and an alert message with your real-time location information will be sent to your loved ones. So, Jacqueline, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, and welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I would love to know how you made a jump from, your work for Teach for America into the technology startup space.
Absolutely. So I get that question all the time. They're like, wait, you were a teacher? And
yeah.
So Teach for America is an incredible leadership program. But I had actually come up with the idea for Revolar when I was still in college at the end of my senior year. I had decided that I really needed to take at least one common sense class. And so I took Entrepreneurship 101. It had to do
that was so smart of you.
Oh, I know. It's literally then directed the rest of my life. So I'm glad I took it. Wish I had taken it my first year.
Right.
But, it was all about idea innovation and focusing on a real problem in your life and creating a solution. At that point, my sister had just faced her second assault. And I had a lot of friends in college over the years who faced assaults. And so that was my focus. And I just remember thinking, what if my sister could have pressed a button? And I could see it playing out in my head because she was in our neighborhood when all this happened, both times, in one of the safest neighborhoods in the States. I then used my graduation money to pay for a patent search. And I remember I went to my professor and asked him the first time, I was like, so I had this idea, what do you think? And he's like, that is such a great idea. You should absolutely follow through with it. 2 weeks later, I found out how much patents cost.
Which, just for those who don't know, how much does a patent cost?
A patent search, $1,000. A provisional patent, $2,500 to actually file the patent. Another $2,500. That doesn't even include all the other legal fees and
wow.
fees. So for somebody straight out of college, of course my computer's dying. For somebody straight out of college, it was incredibly expensive. And so I went back to my professor 2 weeks later and said, are you sure? This is a good idea. I was like, I'm about to spend all the money I have on just a patent search. So are you sure this is a good idea? And he goes, Jackie, I've already told you what I think, and that doesn't really matter. He goes, because at the end of the day, it's going to be you that builds this business. And if you think it's a good idea, then you will be able to believe in it. And so I've actually held on to that for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
I have to believe in it, and it doesn't matter if anybody else believes in it. I have to believe in it with everything I have. And so I took a job teaching with Teach for America so I could bootstrap. And I thought, teaching, flexible. Teach for America is an incredibly hard program to get into. It accepts about 5% of applicants. It's considered one of the hardest jobs in America to get and to then actually do. But teaching is so much like running a company. It's not even funny. You have to set a vision and a culture for your classroom. People have to grow together. You can't have one person growing at a rate that is so much faster or leave anyone behind.
Right.
And it has a lot to do with management and how do you get people to get invested in what they're doing and working on. So I've actually found a lot of similarities between the job. So I taught for 2 years while bootstrapping, and I felt crazy because I couldn't tell people what I was working on because I would have needed them to sign an NDA. So after teaching, I would go and interview engineers, or go and, find a new business attorney, or go and do these things. And nobody knew I was doing them.
Right.
Until I finally started to talk about it. And, we'd had our first prototype. And so my second year of teaching, I told my school what I was doing, and they gave me more flexibility so that I could, take off if I needed to. And they were really supportive of me. After my 2-year commitment with Teach for America, I got hired to help train political candidates run and fundraise for their own campaigns, as well as doing oppositional research for them. So I've always said that at the end of the day, my job has always been a researcher. I don't always have the answer, but I know how to find the answer. So I never worry about having all the answers, because I know I can go and get it.
Right.
But it was really funny to try to train people how to fundraise while I myself was learning how to fundraise, because, I had been trained on what to say to them and how to talk to them about it. But they, it didn't matter how old they were, what experience they'd had, everybody was scared to fundraise. So it actually really was an insightful job right before going into fundraising myself. And after working there for less than 6 months, I had told my boss there, I've only worked for women, which is funny, but I told her, I'm so sorry, Revolar is doing really well and I have to go. And she always knew that I'd been working on that. And I was like, you need to hire somebody else and train them to do what I do. And she goes, honestly, Jackie, I didn't even need to hire you. She goes, I just knew you needed a flexible part-time job so that you could get your company off the ground. And I think what you're doing is really important, and I wanted to see you succeed. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, the amount of people who are not directly in tech that have stood up in one way, shape, or form to make what is today possible humbles me in an overwhelming way.
Right.
Because a lot of people believed in me before it was anything tangible. I had teammates that joined our team when it was just a napkin idea. I had, our investors. But I mean, I got into tech because I wanted to be there. And, here's kind of like the thing about tech, like, everything's new. Right. And everything changes. When I started, wearable was an adjective. I would say that our technology is wearable. Now it's a wearable. Oh, it's a noun. It's become a noun. IoT, Internet of Things. That's like the latest buzzword. Right. But that's why I truly believe that anybody can get involved in tech at any point, because it's constantly changing. The people that are learning about technology now aren't that far ahead of you that you can't catch up and learn. Right.
What do you think on the fundraising side, how you were saying, whether it's a political candidate looking to fundraise or someone in the tech space looking to fundraise, what do you think is so scary about that? Like, why do people sort of dread it?
The biggest barrier is mentality. So you have to train yourself to stop thinking about what a risk you are, and you have to stop thinking about the fact that you're asking for money, because what you're really doing is offering an opportunity. I'm not asking for money because I want a handout. I'm asking for an investment that will, according to our modeling, bring you a 10x return per patient. So it was the same with the campaign. People that were running, they'd be like, well, I don't want to ask these people for money. And and we had to tell them, do you believe that you are the candidate that is going to make a difference in this community? Because if so, then you're offering them the opportunity to help get you elected so that you can make the impact that they want to see. And so it was kind of the same thing with us, is I had to present the opportunity and know that I wasn't asking for money, but that I was offering an opportunity. And that takes a really long time.
Yeah, it seems like such a simple mindset shift, like, oh, just frame it this way. But I'm sure as you're doing it and internalizing it, it's a much longer, deeper process than that.
Oh, 100. It's like any change you want to make in your habits. It takes repetition. It takes time. When I was in the TechStars program, my CEO coach, we used to joke about how being a CEO is just a series of uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
But, a part of it was, I remember telling him, like, where we were, and he wanted me to, we were role playing, like, and by the way, role playing makes you feel awkward, but it's incredibly insightful with the right mentor. And so I was telling him, I was like, look, like, we added this team member, and, in order, to do this, like, otherwise we're going to run out of money. He goes, wait a second. He goes, Jackie, did you screw up? He's like, did you screw up your financials? He's like, are you running out of money because you misspent your money? I'm like, no, not at all. I was like, we're accelerating. Like, it's a good thing. I was like, we're ahead of schedule. I was like, I need this money sooner because Techstars has helped us accelerate our business. He goes, then that's the way you need to present it. Because he goes, the way you originally presented it was you screwed something up. When he goes, in reality, you've done your job so well, you are moving faster than anticipated. And so these bigger costs that you were not anticipating for another 6 months have come sooner. And I was like, oh my goodness, you're right.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it was a minor thing, a minor tweak, but it makes a big difference.
But it's all the difference. And to hear it on the other side of the table, like, it just makes the person hearing it feel different, whether they want to say yes or no. It's, that's a fantastic tip. When you were in that point where you had this idea, you were getting the patent, but no one really knew what you were doing, and you were also teaching full time, did you tell your friends and family at that point what was going on, or did you keep it private from them too?
My immediate family knew, my mom and my sisters.
Yeah.
Because when I first had the idea, I went to my little sister and I asked her, I was like, would this have helped? And she started crying, and she was like, this would have made all the difference. I wouldn't have been alone. I felt so alone. And it was her incredibly strong reaction that I actually think I've watched her heal from me pursuing this. Knowing that I was not going to take what happened to her sitting down.
Right.
Helped her to stand back up and be like, I'm not going to give up either. If she's not giving up on me, then I can't give up on me. But my friends, they had a really hard time at first understanding. They're like, where are you till 10 o'clock at night? Like, why are you and like, where are you going? And I think some of them took it better than others. At this point now, everyone's like, okay, you're like not just messing around. You're like really doing something. But I think I've talked to a lot of first-time entrepreneurs or anybody that's new, and it's hard. It's hard to tell your friends and family, like, I'm going to go and, do this. And they're like, are you just throwing all your money away? Like, what are you doing?
Well, and it's such a big,
you're not going to have a solid job.
Yeah, it's such a big investment of your time, your money, who you are, and just there's a lot that goes into it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate in that when they tell people, they don't always get positive, supportive feedback. And that can be really disheartening and can make people want to stop whether they believe in it or not. And so it's, in my opinion, I think it is kind of a pick and choose who you tell, and you do want support, but also honest feedback at the same time.
Yeah.
As you were doing the research that you did, like with engineers, for example, how did you approach that? How did you set up those meetings? Was it secret and you just kind of worked it in, or like, how'd you get the research and info you needed?
Google.
Okay.
So at first I asked my friends who had engineering degrees. I was like, what kind of engineer do I need? And they'd be like, oh, you need mechanical. No, you need electrical. No,
Okay.
you need software. No, turns out you need all of them. It's an interdisciplinary product that involves all kinds of engineers. I think by the end of it, there'll have been like 10 different kinds of engineers on our product. But I went to Google. There was a lot of false starts in the beginning. I didn't really know what I was looking for, but I would go to these meetings with an NDA. If they didn't sign it, I left. Signed it, I'd talk to them. But actually, shockingly, how I met my first engineer that I hired to actually work on the prototype.
Yeah.
I had gone to meet with one other engineering group who refused to sign an NDA, but I told them it had to do with preventing sexual assault. And I was 22 at this point. And I'd come after school teaching, and it was like 6 p.m. and really dark out. And apparently he panicked, thinking, oh my God, here I am with this girl who's talking about sexual assault in the dark at night. And what if she is like trying to set me up to be sued or something bizarre? And so he actually conned me off on somebody else. And was like, go talk to this person. I think they're up your alley. And then that other guy eventually told me, you scared the heck out of that guy, and he was scared to talk to you. And I was like, that's really funny. I never thought that I could somehow scare somebody. But they just didn't know what I was about, or if they thought I was like joking with them. They didn't realize that I was serious about starting a company around this.
Wow.
And then I learned that not all engineers are made the same. And I had to learn how to structure contracts. So if you don't meet your deadlines, there's clear laid out consequences.
Right.
And although, the guy I worked with in the beginning was very kind, he wasn't getting it done. And after, 9 months of missing a deadline with no answers as to when we were going to have it, I had to leave. And so I went through different engineering firms until we finally met the right CTO. And then it all happened really quickly after that. So our engineering team is super strong now, but the beginning was definitely rough. I mean, that was the biggest learning curve, was figuring out how do I manage engineers and how do I get them interested in our project.
Yeah. How did you end up getting involved with Techstars?
So funny enough, we never thought we had a shot in hell of getting into Techstars. They accept less than 1% of applicants, harder to get into than Harvard.
Wow.
We did not apply because it was during our Kickstarter campaign, and we just completely missed the deadline. We were just so overwhelmed with Kickstarter and AngelList. We had missed it. But they heard me pitch at a competition. And for new startups, pitching in competitions is terrifying, but it's an incredible way to get feedback and an incredible way to network. So we won the competition, and Techstars was there. And
okay.
Come in for an interview. Like, you're amazing. Like, come in for an interview. So my team and I did, and then they offered us a spot, which was incredibly exciting and an honor. But it was, they kind of found us, and I'm just so grateful that they did.
Yeah. Well, that's really incredible. And then the Techstars program, is that like a 6-month commitment or what? 3 months? And then, so you've been how long have you been out of that now?
Since September 9th, we've been out of it.
Oh, okay. So early really recently.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think, as an entrepreneur, and I think it's so interesting that you took that Entrepreneurship 101 class as your start, but as an entrepreneur, what do you think are kind of the best parts about what you get to do on a daily basis?
My favorite part, at least, is I've always enjoyed a mental challenge and being around people who are incredibly talented at what they do. And so I think that's my favorite part about my job, is that I've managed to surround myself with really intelligent, interesting people who on a daily basis, whether we agree or not, teach me something.
Right.
So I learn something new every single day from them. And I love that aspect of my job. Yeah. I love the learning. I love that I'm never bored. I love that the people around me are just, they never cease to amaze me. And that's probably the most exciting part. I don't think I ever thought I'd get to be in a position where my intelligence was just constantly being pushed. And I don't know, I love it.
Isn't that interesting that, people, there's that book, I think it's called Cubicle Nation, where the topic of conversations, we're all working in these cubicles and we're not being pushed. And in entrepreneurship, it's an everyday nudge in some form or another. What do you think? And I think most of the entrepreneurs I talk to tend to think that there's a lot of ups and downs, and those ups and downs aren't necessarily just week to week or day by day, but even like the hour to hour roller coaster ride. What do you like in your world? How do you recover from a tough day, and how do you like take that to stay committed and keep your project moving forward?
A few things have helped. In the beginning, it was incredibly stressful. When we were bootstrapping and I'd left teaching, I couldn't afford a gym membership. I couldn't afford therapy. I could not have afforded healthy food. I couldn't afford any of the things that normally help keep me emotionally and mentally stable. So that was incredibly strenuous. And to be quite honest, my boyfriend stepped up a lot. He would cook all the meals. Like, if I had a, meltdown over something, they would just like, he actually has an identical twin brother. So one or the other one was always taking care of me at some point.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
And then my mom and my little sister moved out here. After my sister finished nursing school. So now they live here. So Sundays I get to go to her house and refresh and hang out with my family. And I find that really soothing. But I've actually been working really hard to be on a very consistent schedule. So I've actually prioritized, even like when I travel, I only stay at a hotel that has a gym.
Oh, uh-huh.
I force myself to work out a certain amount of times per week. As a company, we have a weekly goal that you have to do at least one thing healthy for yourself.
Oh, that's great.
Oh yeah. So I have found that what I eat and how much exercise I'm getting directly impacts my stress levels and my abilities to handle the stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a natural worker-outer. I'm more of a let's go for a stroll and drink smoothies outer. So I've had to work really hard on that, but it's
and when a little bit of taking care of yourself and being a priority too, and not just wearing yourself out. You know, it sounds so basic, but so many of us just don't do it, or we do it for a bit and then we fall off.
Yes. And teaching really taught me that. Teaching taught me that if you don't take care of yourself, you literally do not have the energy to help anybody else.
Ah, interesting. Well, as we wrap up, I'd love to ask one more question, and that is, what do you think is the big trend or topic we'll be talking about in a year from now?
In technology specifically?
Yeah, maybe in the technology space or in women-led startup space, something along those lines.
I think we're seeing a huge shift. It is all the data shows that having women in a company on your leadership affects the bottom line in a really positive way. So I think we're going to see increasing numbers of women entering technology and minorities entering technology. And I think that data is really the next oil. So like figuring out how you can work with data is just going to be huge, because that's everything. It tells you everything about your company. It tells you everything about where you could go. It tells you what your customers really want. And so I really think that a lot more people are going to be building companies around data. But I also think that when I look at trends, there has to be this breaking point. There has been this huge buildup in tension. You know, like even just recently, a VC came out and said, we can't find any women to invest in. And I was just, you know, and it's just
unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, but it's also unbelievable that have a presidential candidate that wants to lock up a whole religion. I think in our country, we are seeing people become educated thanks to social media in a way that they never have before. And it's churning the tides in a positive way. Yeah. You know, 3 years ago, nobody wanted to talk about sexual assault. And thanks to social media, people are talking about it and they're getting support. So I think we'll continue to see these positive trends. I'm also an optimist, a techno-utopian, where I really think technology can fix things. But I also think we're going to see a lot of more warnings from some of the futurists saying we really have to be careful about how we're building our technology, artificial intelligence. And, you know, what I say in every interview for an engineer is there has to be empathy behind every line of code you write. There has to be empathy to the person who's going to press that button, because they're pressing it because they're scared. Yeah. It is not a positive reason, which is why we hope you never have to actually use our tech.
Right.
But we're seeing technology built for people who before didn't have a voice. And I'm really, really excited for that. So I'm an optimist.
Well, we are too. So thank you so much for being here today. We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Katrina. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.